Good afternoon and welcome to the latest edition of the Married with Children documentary, The Ladies or the Girls of Married with Children, as we look back on the iconic comedy TV franchise which spanned throughout the United States in the 1980s and the 1990s, a global comedy phenomenon in many respects, 11 seasons, and it was one of the shows that really put the Fox network on the map. It became a household show in terms of cable TV all across America. And this week's episode, we look back on, we're going to season 4, we're going to episode 2, Dead Men Don't Do Aerobics, and one of the guest actresses on this episode, she played the role of Bunny, and her name is the one and only Michelle Smith. And Michelle, 1989, I suppose, Married with Children. Does it almost feel like a different lifetime ago, a sort of different life in terms of...
sort of, but it was a great year, 1989. I have to tell you, it was a good year for me. I know that. But yeah, I mean, at that time, to get a role on a show like Married with Children, are you kidding me? That was like the dream of every new up and coming actress that, you know, just came to California, even if it was 5 lines or under, you know, a couple of lines. I mean, most of the girls probably would have wanted to be on there even if they didn't say anything at that time. You know, it was a great thing to have on your resume. And actually, to this day, I still get residual checks. They're not enough to buy a cup of coffee, but you know.
And I suppose that Michelle, in terms of Married with Children, you got your role in it in season 4, just when it was beginning, the curve of the show was beginning to skyrocket, and really season 1 and season 2 it was sort of making waves, but by season 4 it was on everyone's sort of lips in terms of throughout the United States. And tell me, how did our opportunity come about for you to get cast in Married with Children? Because one thing in terms of Married with Children that people don't realize is how difficult it was. It was probably one of the most popular shows throughout the country, so everyone wanted to be on it. So in terms of that audition process, it's not like a case of here you are, a beautiful lady, you walk into the room, you get the role. There was probably, I imagine, 60 or 70 beautiful ladies, all just as good
or more, because here's the thing. If you think back and you watch many of their episodes, they had a lot of pretty girls on there.
Yeah.
So whenever anyone at that time in LA wanted pretty girls for a sexy role or a bimbo role or anything of that nature, they generally went to Playboy models. And that's how they got most of us. That's how I got my gig on there. So that was usually the first place they went, looking for the girls, Playboy models.
And I suppose that Michelle, in terms of that, still, it's very much a different story in terms of appearing on a network sort of TV show, in terms of comedy, in terms of humor, in terms of the nerves. I suppose people, you're trying to play a character as such in terms of TV show. So for many sort of models, that can be sort of daunting as well if you don't have that sort of confidence or that sort of personality which you need to bring across on a comedy TV show.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, some girls, maybe comedy wasn't their thing, but for me, you know, to have those small parts and those small roles, I mean, you learn from every gig that you get. And like I said, to have Married with Children on a resume, and all these years later, you're still talking about it. We're sitting here having a whole conversation about it. Anytime you mention to anyone that you were on Married with Children, what? You were on Married with Children? Like, that's a big deal, you know? So it's kind of funny that even the younger generation of people, they still know the show. I have nieces and nephews, some that weren't even born in 1989, but yet they know the show because it's on Nickelodeon here in the US.
Yeah.
So they still see the reruns of those shows. So, you know, they'll see me once in a while. They're like, hey, you should be getting a residual check. I just saw you on Married with Children.
I suppose.
And 4 and 1 and 2 and 4 and 4 and rest. Okay, ladies, let's take a break while I mix up a Jim Jupiter, spirulina, and wheatgrass shake.
Suppose that Michelle, in terms of, I've heard so many good stories in terms of where actresses have been when the TV show aired on that days as well. Some actually young actresses were working as waitresses in ordinary diners as such when their sort of TV show aired. Your episode aired on September the 10th, 1989. You start to remember, were you with family, loved ones, parents? Were you on a modeling?
I was living in Los Angeles, California.
Yeah.
I was auditioning. I never worked as a waitress or any other side hustle. I went to LA strictly to be a model and an actress. I wanted to get into that because it was something I enjoyed doing and I was going to get paid for it. So I was always busy going on auditions. And after Married with Children was done, I went on to the next one. But where I was exactly, September 10th, 1989, if that's the day it aired, then I was probably sitting in front of the TV with a boyfriend at the time, watching myself.
And I suppose in terms of family and sort of loved ones as well, I suppose they probably get to still see that episode on TV. And is it one of those sort of things that you're proud of in terms of sisters and brothers? They can say, hey, my sister was on Married with Children, or
yeah,
hey,
of course,
my mother was in Married with Children, and sort of such. Is it one of those sort of gigs? Because it's such an iconic show that has been seen all over the world. So to be on a show like that is still going strong, maybe 30 or more years on, it must be a sense of real achievement that you were part of that sort of fraternity.
Well, the thing is, I don't have kids, but I have nieces and nephews they age from range 16 to 30. And they all at one time or in their life or another have watched the show and have seen the reruns throughout the years. I mean, that's how long it's been since 1989. Goes back a long way. But yeah, it's kind of nice that they get to see that the next generation gets to see it.
Yeah,
sure.
and I suppose, Michelle, I suppose I'll bring you on to arriving on the set of Married with Children. And one of the experiences that I'm hearing so far throughout in terms of the guest actresses that have appeared on is how well they were treated from the moment they arrived on set.
Always,
in terms of
yes.
VIP sort of treatment in terms of makeup, wardrobes, costumes, food, everything. They got the same treatment as the main stars as such. And was that the sort of experience for you? Did you have your own dressing room?
I remember having my own dressing room. From what I remember, I want to say it was like even inside the building, because a lot of times they have the honey wagons outside. But we were treated very well. They didn't treat us like, a lot of the sets where they would bring on a lot of extras, and they're kind of like shoved in a corner. And, no, in fact, I can remember myself and the other lady that I worked with, Catherine, I want to say we even had lunch with Ed O'Neill on the lunch break, like across the street or somewhere on the set. I vaguely remember going somewhere with him and the other girl on the lunch break.
And that seems to be a growing trend. What I'm hearing is how welcoming Ed O'Neill was towards guest actresses in terms of giving them the voice, making them feel sort of comfortable and at ease in terms of working on a sort of a comedy show, and trying to be he seemed to be a very approachable man in terms of
he was. Yeah, they were all very approachable. I mean, Christina Applegate and David Faustino, they were pretty young at the time. I didn't really have much of an interaction with them. Probably a hello, that's about it. Yeah. Katie Seagal and Ed O'Neill seemed like they were both very approachable. I mean, the whole set, the crew, working with everyone at that time, they always treated us great on a lot of those sets, but especially on Married with Children.
And I suppose in terms of the live show now, Michelle, in terms of shooting that, because we see you and Catherine, who plays Lola, in terms of dancing on the TV set with Mr. Jim Jupiter. So was that sort of shot in a different sort of a nearby sort of set in terms of back sort of stage where the audience couldn't sort of see at the same time in terms of the live sort of shoot, or was it side by side sets?
No, it was like side by side sets. In fact, I don't even remember having a live audience. I
Okay.
don't know if we had a live audience then, or they just kind of filtered in the laughter. Yeah, I don't remember there even being a live audience, but it was definitely on set. I mean, they had a whole studio and it was like different vignettes set
Yeah.
up
Okay.
for
And
each scene.
and
I still
suppose that,
remember my lines.
yeah. And Michelle, in terms of the guest actor Tom Lamb, who played sort of Jim Jupiter, I suppose you were the sort of three sort of guest actors, and I suppose it's sort of corny in terms of here he goes, probably the fittest man in Chicago, going to probably the home wrecker of all home wreckers in sort of Peggy Bundy. If there was a slouch of the year, she gets it, and she almost, instead of him trying to convert her, she converts him to his message.
Right.
He
That's
comes,
typical Bundy.
yeah, and he comes back a beaten, a sort of a shell of himself, and even still, we see the background of his character in terms of the revelation that you yourself and the Lola character both are dating him at the sort of same time, and when he drops dead of the heart attack, and
My boyfriend.
yeah,
He was my boy. That's what that was. My boyfriend. No, my boyfriend. And then we were like pulling and fighting, and then it was like cut.
but it's sort of irony as well that you see him, the second take of him, and he's there with the cigarette in his mouth, and a gut for a sort of a stomach as well, a bulging sort of gut, and
Eating
even
bonbons.
eating bonbons, and you're sort of still in that trance. You're still sort of hooked in terms of he's still your boyfriend, he's still Jim Jupiter, even though he's probably a shadow of what he once was.
Right. Yep. No more healthiest man in Chicago, that's for sure.
And I suppose, Michelle, in terms of appearing in a sort of a comedy show like Married with Children, you mentioned you did an awful lot of modeling and in sort of different sort of ventures and stuff like that. And I suppose modeling gives you confidence as well in terms of bearing all and bearing that sort of your soul as such. But in terms of acting, in terms of appearing on Married with Children as such, did he give you that sort of a buzz coming out of the studio after shooting it? Was the adrenaline sort of racing in terms of, yeah, this is what I want to do, I want more, give me more of episodes?
Well,
like
you always
this?
wanted more. You
Yeah.
know, when you're on a set like that in the beginning, you might get a little nervous, but then as it goes and you're rehearsing, and it's usually like a week-long shoot, and then it's like, okay, I'm ready for the next thing. I want to go on to the next thing. You know, there was always something. I mean, you didn't want to just do one thing and now I don't want to do it anymore. No, of course it gave you adrenaline. You know, you had to. If that's what you wanted to do, you know, you had to keep going and try new projects, and not just TV, but whether it was print or commercial or hosting. Yeah, it's always great to be busy.
And I suppose that
Now, ladies, live from Chicago, the Jim Jupiter Show.
Hi, ladies. I'm Jim Jupiter. Healthiest man in Chicago. Yeah.
Let's get that exercise thing over with, shall we? And one.
He's put on some weight, hasn't he?
Oh, he's just pumped.
And his chin?
Oh no! He's dead! My boyfriend's dead! Your boyfriend? He's my boyfriend! No, mine! 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 He's mine! Oh, mine!
Can't believe it.
Michelle, in terms of the fraternity as such as the ladies of Married with Children, it's a well-renowned list of top actresses, top models, I suppose, who have appeared over the 11 seasons. You've everyone from Mila Jovovich, who played in the Resident
Yes.
Evil movies, to Denise Richards, to Terry Ivans, to Krista Allen, to Tiffany Thiessen from Saved by the Bell. You've Cindy Taylor. I suppose I could keep
Pam
mentioning
Anderson.
Pamela Anderson, yes. You could keep mentioning names and dropping names. So it's quite a privileged sort of variety or fraternity to be in terms of being a lady of Married with Children, because obviously it was done for 11 seasons. It's such an iconic show that no one sort of dares touch it again. So there'll be no sort of new members added to that sort of list as such. And in terms of that, does that sort of fill you with pride when you hear those sort of names that have guest starred in similar sort of roles as yourself in sort of Married with Children, that you're on the same even sort of keel with those actresses and models who have gone on to do great things as well?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how it was on a lot of shoots and a lot of shows. You know, you worked with people like that, and you maybe at that time didn't even realize, and maybe years later you're, oh yeah, I worked with her on this or that. But I mean, that's, you know, everyone thinks that Hollywood is a big place. Hollywood's a small place. It's a small community, believe it or not. When you're out there and you're auditioning and you're working, it's, you know, it's a small place.
And I suppose, Michelle, in terms of being involved in some projects and sort of TVs and commercials, you mentioned that they probably might travel a few states in America. They might travel in America. But in terms of a show like Married with Children that has traveled the world, that is dubbed in so many languages, from French, Spanish, Italian, that's been shown in Brazil, Germany, Ireland, England, South Africa, China, Japan, all these, and to see that so many people in so many different continents get to see reruns of your show and get to see you on sort of TV, does that sort of feel a euphoria, sort of sense of an iconic sort of achievement to know that so many people, so many millions and millions of miles away, get to see you and get to see your episode again maybe for the very first time, all over again, and experience your character and experience Bunny for the first time in Married with Children? Does that feel a sort of an awe sort of moment when you think about it?
I guess when I really think about it, I don't think about it all that much unless someone else brings it up, or unless I get, like I said, a residual check in the mail, and then I say, oh, what was it? Oh, Married with Children. Oh, okay, that must have aired somewhere. Because I think it's not only on syndicated TV, but it's like DVD rentals and internet, and you know, it's everywhere. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I mean, it's definitely iconic, and it's nice to be a part of that.
And I suppose, Michelle, the last question I have for you before I let you go, and it's probably one that will probably have to rack your brains a bit in terms of sort of challenging sort of question for you. Let's pretend there was a Married with Children encyclopedia, a sort of dictionary as such.
Oh, no.
And they were putting all the fictional characters who have played a role in Married with Children throughout the 11 seasons into that dictionary. And they came across your character, Bunny. And they put her into that encyclopedia, and they left 2 blank sentences underneath it. And somehow one of the writers or editors of that encyclopedia got a hold of you through an agent or something, and got on the phone and said, listen, they told you about their project, what they were doing. And they said, Michelle, could you do us a favor, having portrayed Bunny in Married with Children, could you write those 2 sentences underneath her name to describe her in terms of her role? And if that was the case, Michelle Smith, having portrayed the role of Bunny in Married with Children, what would you like those 2 sentences to read?
About Bunny?
About Bunny, yeah. How would you see Bunny in your own eyes if you had to write sort of 2 sentences?
Well, I know what Bunny was in my own eyes. She was a bimbo, kind of airheaded aerobic instructor. I mean, that was who Bunny was.
And I suppose, Michelle Smith, lastly, I suppose another question for you before I let you go. One thing, same sort of question, 2 sentences to sum up your experience on the set of Married with Children.
2 sentences? I have one word, fabulous.
Fabulous.
I mean, it's fabulous, and it was great to be part of such an iconic show.
Michelle Smith, on that note, an absolute pleasure talking to you today to relive your memories of your time playing Bunny in Married with Children. You appeared on season 4, episode 2, Dead Men Don't Do Aerobics, 1989. I do advise people to look up that. Do watch the show all over again. Keep watching the show. The more you watch the show, the more Michelle will get residuals, and she can afford more.
It doesn't really work like that, but
more cups of tea, and more
we'll watch
coffees.
it anyway.
We'll watch it anyway, that's for sure. Michelle, pleasure talking to you today, and definitely that episode, like yourself, has stood the test of time in terms of 1989. Pleasure talking to you, Michelle, and please God, maybe sometime we can get to speak to you again in the near future. Take care.
Great. Thank you so much, and be safe. Thank you.
Cheers. Take care,
Cheers.
Michelle.